Have you ever stopped to think that maybe the most dangerous thing that can happen to a Christian isn't losing their faith, but living an entire life without ever finding out what God put them here for? Millions of people wake up every day with the same mechanical ritual: a rushed breakfast, gridlocked traffic, repetitive work, heading back home exhausted, sleeping, and then starting all over again. They go to work, they fulfill obligations, they attend church Sunday after Sunday, they post inspirational verses on social media just to rack up likes. But deep down, when their head hits the pillow and the house finally goes quiet, they carry an agonizing question they don't dare ask out loud. Does my life really have a divine purpose, or is this just pretty talk that pastors repeat to comfort those who are lost and directionless? The inconvenient truth that no one likes to admit is that the majority of American Christians theoretically believe that life has a universal purpose, but less than 20% connect that existential search to intimately knowing, deeply loving, and sacrificially serving God. That's not just cold academic research statistics. It's shocking evidence of an entire generation living far below the glorious calling they were created for, wasting eternal potential on temporary distractions that won't matter 100 years from now. It's like holding a detailed treasure map in your hands, complete with precise coordinates and clear instructions, but never leaving your cozy couch to go after it, because Netflix and social media are just more convenient. But here's the surprising plot twist that no one tells you in those superficial motivational sermons. Purpose isn't some mystical thing you discover on an intense one-week spiritual retreat in the mountains, or in a dramatic mystical revelation while fasting for 40 days praying in strange tongues. It's an invisible yet real thread that's already been carefully woven into the tapestry of your story since before you even took your first breath, just waiting for you to stop running around in circles like a hamster on a wheel and look closely in the right direction. God didn't hide his purpose like it was some cruel, impossible scavenger hunt game where only the super spiritual win. He clearly revealed it in the Holy Scriptures, in the unique circumstances of your life, in the natural and spiritual talents he freely gave you, in the deep pains that shaped and broke you, and in the strategic people who crossed your path at exactly the right times. What you're going to discover in the next few minutes aren't three-step magic formulas for instant success, nor are they empty promises of material prosperity that distorted theology sells. It's the raw, honest, and deeply transforming biblical truth about why you exist at this exact moment in history, what specific mission God carefully and exclusively designed for you since the foundation of the world, and most importantly, how to translate all that deep theology into practical, small, and achievable steps that actually work on Monday morning when the alarm clock relentlessly rings at 6 o'clock. If you're genuinely tired of living on emotional and spiritual autopilot, if you feel deep down in your soul that you're wasting precious time that will never return, or if you simply want to stop hypocritically pretending that everything's fine when inside there's a screaming existential void consuming your peace, then prepare your heart. Because recognizing and following the invisible thread that connects every detail of your life to God's eternal and sovereign plan might just be the definitive turning point that separates merely existing from truly living with purpose and meaning. It's profoundly curious and even paradoxical to see how someone can have plenty of access to cutting-edge material goods, advanced technology connecting the whole world, and enviable professional opportunities, yet still feel that something absolutely essential is missing, something no amount of money in the world can buy. Just think about what it's like to wake up comfortably in an air-conditioned, decorated room, with the gourmet coffee already brewed in the modern kitchen, healthy children growing up with every educational opportunity, a corporate career promising financial stability and a relaxed retirement. But deep down, in that place nobody sees on social media, there isn't that vibrant sensation of genuinely living what you were supposed to be living, fulfilling what you were supposed to be fulfilling. Christians in the United States, for example, a country of abundance and unlimited opportunities, describe this disturbing existential void as if even their daily morning prayer and faithful involvement in church every single Sunday were completely incapable of filling an invisible yet painfully real hole in the soul. The persistent feeling that there's something fundamental that just doesn't fit into this life stubbornly remains amidst all the impressive external achievements, inevitably giving rise to deep, uncomfortable questions during the silent breaks in a noisy routine, like that existential questioning that pops up unexpectedly during the pause between executive meetings or in the solitary silence of your own car driving home. Does my life really have a transcendent purpose, or am I just following a social script without any real meaning? This agonizing and universal feeling respects absolutely nothing, not age, not profession, nor apparent level of faith or spiritual maturity. Talented young people who aced difficult competitive exams, earned coveted academic scholarships at prestigious universities, or landed that highly competitive job with a 5-figure salary experience exactly the same void. Successful adults who keep packed schedules of important commitments and even respected seniors who have already helped countless people along the way also feel this inexplicable restlessness. Everyone, absolutely everyone, finds themselves alone face to face with the same disturbing mystery once in a while. Why the heck does everything look so full, so busy, and so successful on the outside, but remain so hollow, so empty, and so meaningless on the inside? And it is precisely there, in that moment of honest existential crisis, that the uncomfortable emptiness turns into a divine invitation not to consume even more products that promise happiness, nor to desperately chase after more fleeting, superficial solutions offered by the market, but to finally stop and listen carefully to a greater, deeper, and eternally relevant truth that often is deliberately ignored because it bothers our comfort zone too much. The restless and unsatisfied human heart clearly reveals a reserved space, a specifically shaped void for something transcendent that cannot be earned by self-effort, but only humbly received as an undeserved gift. This acute crisis of existential emptiness can concretely manifest itself in small, observable things. That sudden and inexplicable desire to radically change everything in your life, the deep discouragement that mysteriously appears right alongside the professional success you longed for, the disturbing impulse to just drop everything and search for a completely new answer somewhere else. Many desperate people persistently try to silence this screaming void with more expensive leisure activities, Instagram-worthy exotic trips, and even exciting, forbidden new relationships. But the inner black hole inexorably keeps growing. They frantically switch jobs, thinking it's a career problem, move cities, thinking it's a place problem, and change social circles, thinking it's a friendship problem. But the existential question remains relentless with every single change. From a rigorously pastoral and profoundly biblical perspective, this disturbing emptiness is actually a valuable clue to the greater calling God is whispering, because that feeling only makes logical sense if there truly is a real, objective, and transcendent purpose patiently waiting to be discovered and embraced, not artificially manufactured by cheap self-help. It's the golden opportunity to finally stop the insane rush and reflect deeply. Precisely what is painfully missing clearly shows who I can still become through the transforming grace of God. If you've intensely felt this existential emptiness at some vulnerable point in life, you know very well how persistently bothersome it is and how much it disturbs superficial peace. But you also know it can open a unique and precious door to complete re-signification. Sometimes it's enough to have the courage to talk openly and without masks to a mature, trustworthy person. Intentionally read a solid Christian book that asks difficult and necessary questions like The Purpose-Driven Life by Pastor Rick Warren, or The Call, by thinker Os Guinness, or even bravely change your automatic routine to create deliberate sacred space for the contemplative silence that our noisy culture hates. All of this might be God's sovereign action, strategically using existential discomfort as a spiritual megaphone to wake you up. What initially looks like just negative psychological discomfort might actually be the promising beginning of a genuine and transforming search for divine mission and eternal meaning. That holy pursuit that has the real power to radically transform both the restless and agonizing heart and the entire trajectory of a wasted life. And maybe, precisely while submerged in this uncomfortable and seemingly hopeless void, God is carefully preparing the fertile ground of your heart for powerful revelations that change absolutely everything. But before you finally discover that specific mission, it's absolutely crucial to first deeply understand who you really are. What does it truly mean, in practical and theological terms, to be created in the image and likeness of God? In a culturally chaotic world where individual self-esteem easily swings like a leaf in the wind and destructive comparison reigns absolute on social media, few Christians genuinely realize consciously that every person already intrinsically carries, from the moment of conception, an inherent worth and extraordinary potential that absolutely doesn't depend on external human approval or religious performance. It isn't some exclusive spiritual trophy that only a super few special saints earn by merit. It's an invisible yet real mark, an indelible divine signature stamped on the soul that clearly points to non-negotiable dignity, reflective creativity, and the unique capacity to enter into deep and meaningful relationships. You were intentionally created with the impressive capacity to love sacrificially like God loves, create beauty like God creates, decide morally like God decides, dream futures like God dreams, and transform realities like God transforms. Absolutely all of this wonderfully reflects the glorious image of the Creator. The devastating problem is that this originally perfect image was tragically fragmented and distorted by the sin of the fall and by accumulated traumas from life in a broken world, painful cracks that visibly appear in destructive negative feelings, in the lying automatic thoughts that insistently say, "You're good for nothing, nobody really depends on you. God certainly doesn't care about someone so insignificant." But here's the liberating good news of the gospel. Authentic Christian purpose doesn't magically start when everything is finally working perfectly without problems. It starts exactly when you humbly make real space for divine restoration, recognizing with brutal honesty that the sovereign God doesn't call spiritually ready and perfect people, but mercifully calls anyone genuinely willing to bravely enter into this long and sometimes painful process of deep inner healing. Think concretely about real people who finally decided to seek serious pastoral counseling, start professional Christian therapy, sincerely apologize to those they severely hurt, or even those who resolved to participate much more actively in an authentic small group, to simultaneously be real support and receive true support in mutual vulnerability. There, in that safe community context, the disfigured image of God gradually begins to be patiently restored from the inside out, transformingly influencing everything from the smallest, most everyday gestures to major, trajectory-changing decisions. The simple human act of genuinely welcoming a rejected person, attentively listening without premature judgment, hugging tightly at the right moment, or generously sharing time and experiences is already a powerful part of this contagious restoration that impacts everyone around. Being called to restoration by the Holy Spirit isn't a heavy and oppressive religious burden, but rather a practical and liberating pathway for those who genuinely desire a greater and deeper meaning. It's not about comfortably running away from your own shameful failures by pretending they don't exist, but bravely learning to honestly deal with them under the transformative lens of divine care and patient reconstruction. When authentic Christians regularly gather to vulnerably share the real journey with its ups and downs, Deeply study the scriptures applied to daily life. Fervently pray for one another with specific names and needs, and practice concrete acts of reconciliation that cost them something. This blurred divine image finally begins to shine with much greater clarity and beauty. Every powerful biblical example of restoration, like Joseph generously forgiving his envious brothers who cruelly sold him into slavery, or Peter humbly rising again after his shameful triple denial of Jesus at the most critical moment, serves as an encouraging reminder. God supernaturally transforms ordinary and broken people into extraordinary vehicles of transforming grace, creatively reconstructing shattered stories far beyond the permanent scars of a traumatic past. It's precisely here that the personal and urgent invitation comes in, honestly facing your painful cracks and paralyzing doubts. What small, courageous choice can you make today to finally embark on this restorative process? Sometimes it's simply a difficult phone call to that specific person you deeply hurt years ago, an honest morning prayer confessing your real and shameful weaknesses instead of nice, memorized phrases, the unusual courage to speak openly about personal vulnerabilities in a small group of mutual trust, or a simple, firm commitment to intentionally seek more real intimacy with God through just 5 daily minutes of unhurried meditative Bible reading. The path to purpose necessarily passes first through the careful restoration of the damaged divine image, and only after that does it naturally expand into external mission and transformative impact in the world. And it's at this crucial turning point that theoretically understanding purpose stops being just abstract philosophical reflection and concretely begins to involve tangible and contagious practical action. Much more than simply repairing the broken past, it's about actively beginning to design a new chapter with renewed hope, looking ahead with faith to what comes next. Living consistently to glorify God isn't some superficial thing you only do comfortably within the 4 walls of the church or during solemn set-aside moments of morning prayer. It's a radical and comprehensive calling that literally cuts across every daily choice, every seemingly insignificant conversation, every complex professional decision, and every delicate personal one. When someone finally deeply understands that their entire life, every waking minute, every relationship cultivated, every resource managed, becomes a sacred stage for faithfully reflecting the divine character, even the most everyday and routine gestures gain eternal weight and transcendent meaning. It's as if every individual action is a specific and necessary brick in the invisible yet real construction of the kingdom. From the respectful way you treat that annoying coworker everyone avoids, to the conscious decision to use hard-earned money with sacrificial generosity, or the courageous way you constructively react in the face of glaring injustices all around you. Absolutely nothing is left out of this comprehensive calling. Everything organically connects to a greater purpose that completely transcends the limited present moment. The interesting and democratizing thing is that this biblical concept of intentional mission isn't restricted exclusively to ordained pastors, cross-cultural missionaries, or publicly recognized spiritual leaders. Every authentic Christian, regardless of title or position, has a unique and strategic sphere of influence. It might be quietly at home with their nuclear family, daily at school among classmates and teachers, regularly in the neighborhood with close neighbors, professionally in the corporate environment among competitive colleagues, digitally on social media reaching hundreds or thousands, or even recreationally on the amateur weekend soccer team. Governing that specific sphere with biblical justice, sacrificial love, and humble service is concretely exercising the imperial call of the kingdom, bringing penetrating light where there is oppressive darkness, restorative peace where there is destructive conflict, and liberating truth where there is generalized confusion. For a practical example, that tired dad who intentionally chooses to be present and engaged in the lives of his teenage children, even though he's exhausted from a stressful job, reading bedtime stories to the little ones and talking deeply about the day with the older ones, is exercising eternal mission with generational impact. That professional of integrity who firmly maintains biblical ethics in a corporate culture of convenient shortcuts, bravely refusing a tempting bribe or strategic lie, even when that realistically means losing a coveted promotion or immediate profit, is brilliantly reflecting the inflexible glory of God. That courageous young person who consistently confronts cruel bullying at school with gentle yet firm courage, publicly defending the rejected and marginalized classmate even while risking their own popularity, is authentically representing Christ in the brutal, concrete reality of real life. But this purposeful, intentional lifestyle doesn't magically pop up overnight, nor does it automatically maintain itself on religious autopilot. It demands conscious daily intentionality, small strategic habits that gradually mold the inner character. Deliberately waking up 15 minutes earlier for focused prayer, diligently practicing gratitude by writing down 3 specific blessings from the day, cultivating classic spiritual disciplines like systematic Bible reading and regular weekly fasting, actively seeking authentic community where social masks finally drop and vulnerable mutual support strengthens everyone. It's in the ordinary day-to-day that the mission is concretely revealed, when you deliberately choose to forgive instead of bitterly holding grudges and planning sophisticated revenge, when you generously offer practical help instead of just giving empty advice over WhatsApp, when you humbly decide to serve even without an applauding audience or validating recognition on social media. It's these small, accumulated acts of obedience day after day that progressively sketch out a fruitful life in the kingdom, where purpose stops being a distant idea and turns into a palpable, measurable reality. And here, an uncomfortable but absolutely necessary question inevitably arises. Are your real daily choices aligned with this greater eternal mission, or are they being unconsciously commanded by paralyzing fear of what people will think, pride disguised as self-sufficiency, sickening comparison with others on social media, or a desperate search for human approval? Because when life becomes a conscious and deliberate mission, even the most painful challenges gain new meaning. They aren't just irritating obstacles to overcome with human strategies, but precious opportunities for spiritual growth and authentic living testimony. Every financial crisis faced with faith instead of destructive panic, every broken relationship restored by costly forgiveness, every act of generosity practiced quietly without publicity becomes part of the greater narrative God is writing through your life. But recognizing and consistently living this mission also demands honestly confronting the real cultural challenges that contemporary secular society imposes, especially for the younger generations who are navigating a turbulent sea of contradictory voices. If there is one specific demographic group that faces a growing and alarming difficulty in authentically connecting divine purpose with practical daily life, it is precisely the current younger generation. Recent and worrying sociological research reveals that they are the ones who least consistently associate life meaning with intimately knowing, deeply loving, and sacrificially serving God. Not because they're less spiritual by nature or genetically, but because they're navigating a chaotic cultural ocean where literally hundreds of authoritative voices are screaming completely different and contradictory definitions of purpose and success. Addictive social media persistently sells instant and superficial happiness through ephemeral likes and disposable followers. Secular universities aggressively promote radical autonomy that rejects any transcendent external authority. Pop culture incessantly celebrates extreme individualism where you are the sovereign center of your universe, and all this creates tremendous and paralyzing confusion. In the middle of this deafening flood of contradictory and morally relativistic information, even sincere and well-intentioned Christians end up lost and disoriented, honestly asking themselves whether a specific objective divine calling truly exists, or if it's just outdated religious romanticization from more naive previous generations. This complex cultural challenge isn't just for young millennials and Generation Z. It deeply affects entire families and established faith communities. Many Christian parents feel powerless and frustrated to effectively transmit eternal values in a fluid culture that changes its moral north every television season, where what was considered right yesterday turns into intolerable bigotry today. Church leaders daily struggle to make the gospel relevant without dangerously diluting its non-negotiable central message, delicately balancing inflexible truth and abundant grace in a polarized and tribal time. Christian professionals face constant and brutal pressure between competing according to the Darwinian rules of the world, where literally anything goes to reach the top, and living according to the countercultural principles of the kingdom that prioritize integrity over immediate results. And in the middle of all this, the institutional church needs to ask itself with brutal honesty and self-criticism. Are we really equipping people with practical, concrete, and applicable tools to discover and live their purpose? Or do we just offer pretty but empty cliches and programs disconnected from reality? Because it's one thing to preach eloquently about divine purpose in an inspiring Sunday morning sermon. It's a completely different thing to walk alongside someone from Monday through Saturday as they translate that into concrete decisions about career, relationships, finances, and identity. The practical and pastoral answer isn't in slavishly copying secular world methods or in totally rejecting culture through fundamentalist religious isolation, but in creating genuine spaces for welcoming, solid teaching and intentional mentorship. Imagine safe small groups where young people can ask difficult questions without fear of judgment or superficial canned answers, where adults share honest testimonies of failures and fresh starts instead of just edited stories of victory, where the Bible is studied not as a manual of decontextualized rules, but as a living narrative that illuminates every contemporary dilemma. Or think about mentorships that aren't limited to abstract spiritual conversations about hearing the voice of God, but delve into the concrete reality of life. How do you choose a profession that honors God without falling into the trap that ministry is superior to secular work? How do you deal with peer pressure offering drugs or casual sex? How do you use money wisely when capitalism pushes consumerism? How do you build healthy relationships in a world of superficial and disposable connections? It's these practical bridges between faith and life that transform purpose from a distant theological concept into an integral and sustainable lifestyle. The challenge is big, but it isn't impossible. It requires the entire church, not just pastors with theological degrees, but every member with specific gifts, to take responsibility for being a living witness that divine purpose works in practice, not just in the theory found in books. When someone sees a Christian navigating financial crises with faith instead of despair, serving with genuine joy instead of religious obligation, making ethical decisions even when it costs a promotion or profit, maintaining hope amidst political and social chaos that communicates more than 1,000 eloquent sermons. And when faith communities become safe places to question without being labeled a heretic, to grow without the pressure of instant perfection, to make mistakes without fear of definitive rejection, and to start over as many times as necessary, then and only then does purpose stop being a distant mystery and turn into a shared journey. But are we really willing to invest time, authentic vulnerability, and financial resources into this mission of helping others discover the invisible thread that connects every life to God's eternal plan? So answer me something with total honesty, without religious games or automatic responses. After everything you've heard and reflected on today, Are you still going to continue living on emotional and spiritual autopilot, hypocritically pretending that everything's fine while inside that existential void desperately screams for meaning and purpose? Or are you going to have the radical courage to stop right now, take a deep breath, and tell God with total vulnerability, I want to discover the specific purpose you have for my life, even if that means changing absolutely everything: career, relationships, priorities, lifestyle? Because one truth needs to be crystal clear. Divine purpose isn't some nice spiritual decoration to embellish self-help gospel motivational sermons. It's an urgent, radical invitation to a life that truly matters eternally and makes a difference in the kingdom. Which specific area of your life needs to be aligned with this greater calling this week? Is it the job that consumes all your vital energy but doesn't feed your soul or minimally glorify God? Is it that toxic relationship that you know deep down is outside of God's plan, but you stick with it out of paralyzing fear of loneliness? Is it the way you use your time, which slips away between addictive social media and distractions, while eternal talents remain buried and opportunities to serve go unnoticed? Comment down below what concrete, measurable step you're going to take over the next 7 days to start living your purpose instead of just talking about it theoretically in church conversations, because your authentic testimony might be exactly the nudge someone desperate needs to break out of paralysis and get moving. If this content stirred something deep inside you, if it finally clicked in your mind that God didn't create you for a mediocre life of spiritual survival, but for a specific mission that only you can fulfill with your unique gifts, then don't let this revelation die here in this moment. Subscribe to the channel right now and turn on that notification bell, because every single week I bring deep and transformative biblical truths that will equip you to live this purpose in the real world, with its real pressures, real temptations, and real opportunities to make an eternal difference. And hey, if you know someone specific who's lost in this agonizing search for meaning, that close friend who has everything materially but lives emotionally empty, that family member who religiously attends church but has never found their specific mission, that co-worker who asks about faith but doesn't see practical relevance in Christianity, share this video with that person right now, without shame. It might just be that God uses exactly this to light the spark that will transform passive existence into a life purposefully lived for His glory. The invisible thread has always been there, woven into your story. Now you finally know where to look and how to follow it.